Hello, everyone. Welcome back again in the third sessions of this month in the Demystifying Post-Productions. And in these sessions, we will be talking about breaking the image. So stay tuned. If you wonder what is breaking the image, we'll tell you more about that in a couple of minutes. And just to point you out, if you cannot find the last week recording sessions, and if you would like to find more of the recordings from the previous webinar, you can also go to our YouTube channel. It's all recorded in the YouTube channel. It's called the Maxon Volume Program Training. So, and also not to mention that today's sessions is also recorded. And once after the session is finished, we will upload the sessions, the recording into the same YouTube channel as well. And if you have registered to these sessions, you will receive the link to the recording an hour later. Am I right, Simon?
Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
And another small things that I want to mention is that Maxon is trying out some little things here, so you can get a free T-shirt if you want to. And you can go to the link that I showed you here in your screen. It's maxon-merch-store.myshopify.com, and we will include that link as well. And don't forget to include the coupon code, that one, the one that you see on the screen, right? So you literally...
I just posted it into the chat as well.
Is it free? Free?
Yeah, you will get a free T-shirt like mine.
Hey, nice.
And also like Simon. But you just need to pay the shipping cost. That's it. The T-shirt will be free.
Everyone's aware.
This is a code. This is a code that was hanging over from the last 3D Motion show a couple of weeks ago, and so they gave it up then. And I don't think everyone's used up the last items on the code. So I think there's still some available as far as I last checked. So that's the idea. It's not meant to be a money-making exercise on Maxon's part. We were just trying to work out how can we get T-shirts to people who've requested them in a similar sort of way that we used to do when we meet in person. So that's the idea. So the best we could do at the moment is just do it with that code, and all you do is pay shipping.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
All right. Okay. Just another introductions if you missed last sessions. Today we are joined by Diego Yhama, a professional colorist, and then also Anthony Bari. He's a professional consultant to the post-production workflow and also editor, and then also the Director of Training, Simon, and myself, Max, from Maxon. So without further ado, let us pick up the topic we have left last week. I think last week we covered a lot of things, but we still missed some other things. And the things that quite really interesting, and we didn't cover, we didn't provide so much coverage. And it's also interesting for me personally is that the reference monitor, right? So how important is it, Diego, for you, the professional colorist, to have a reference monitor, and what are the criteria when you are looking for a reference monitor?
All right, that's actually a great question. I mean, you have the scopes. We spoke about the scopes and how important they are, and why we need a reference monitor. I mean, the scopes are your technical eye. The scopes are your technical eye. They say where the things are, how to get faster results. But you always need to look at something that is going to give you the trust that your image is going to be repeatable and is going to be like trustworthy in different kind of monitors. So that's the reason of the reference monitor. I always think that usually the reference monitor is more expensive than our computer. And we love our reference monitor. And that's something that we really need to take care about. I always believe that I mean, it's really difficult. It's really difficult right now that there are so many monitors where you can buy different prices. But one of the things that we can notice is that the range of prices between the top end monitor and the, let's think, the computer graphics monitor calibrated are became lower.
Mhm.
6 years ago, we were just thinking in broadcast monitors. For example, in my case, I bought a Sony monitor, and that's the monitor that I have. But today, and the range between a broadcast monitor SDR and a computer monitor SDR is so narrow. So, for example, today I'm thinking, hey, why not to get a computer
Yeah.
graphics monitor? I'm talking about Asus, BenQ, instead of 7,000, 8,000 broadcast monitor.
And if
And
I'm not mistaken, sorry. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I read somewhere that some Asus monitors and also BenQ monitors are also Kalman verified, right?
yes, actually. And for example, I want to invite you, everyone, with Warren Eagles made like a webinar about demystifying monitors, Mythbusters, it was about. So we can share it about it. And they were actually saying that Asus, BenQ have really great monitors, and they are working great in SDR. Sometimes some of them are like releasing monitors in HDR. And I mean, right now we have a really good range of prices and good monitors, and that is a really, really great to enter in this business. Because some years ago, you had to buy a $10,000 monitor, and probably the only ones that could buy that monitor were the TV companies or the film companies. You couldn't get that monitor as a freelance. So now a freelance can make a good grading with a good monitor, and that is one of the advantage of nowadays.
I see, I see. And how often do you recalibrate your monitor, Diego?
Okay, that's actually a great question. Is do we need to calibrate our monitor? I think this is the first question.
Because
And the
sometimes
second
you
one
got
is,
monitors, it's like it is factory calibrated. Do you still need to recalibrate it?
I believe, yes. Do you
Ah,
always need to? I mean, because every time you are, I mean, asking the companies, the monitor companies, they say it's calibrated, it's calibrated. I always think that is better once you get your monitor calibrated. Check if this is true. Check if this is true. And how often do you calibrate? It's actually, this is up to the price also. Expensive monitors don't need to calibrate so often. More affordable monitors, you need to calibrate it usually, like depend of the use of your monitor, how often do you use it, but you need to calibrate it. You need to calibrate it. And when I'm talking about you, it doesn't mean that you have to calibrate it,
uh,
because this is also really important. I
yeah.
don't calibrate my monitors. I call a specialist and he calibrate my monitors. But as a colorist, I have in my mind that my monitors are going to, how you say, are not going to be with all the calibrations all the time. So I have to recalibrate it, recalibrate it, recalibrate it.
I see, I see. And what
We
about
have a
the
question.
yeah,
Sorry,
go on, Simon.
just a quick question about ISO monitors, because I've used Asus ProArt monitors for a number of years now, and I found it to be excellent. But Massimalo, oh, I completely mispronounced your name, Massi. Sorry, I was asking about ISO monitors. Have you had an experience of those, Diego?
No, I haven't. I actually tried it so many years ago when I was a flame artist, when I was using flame. All of the flame like machines came with ISO, and they were really great, but I haven't tried them in grading.
And
But I
we were having a
know
chat
that they
about
have
this before.
excellent HDR ISO monitors.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good concept, isn't it? The difference between only a few thousand, maybe $1,500, $2,000 versus 5, 6, 10,000 and beyond. Absolutely. But when we were having a chat before, you said an interesting thing about how the monitor changes your relationship with the client, especially but giving them confidence.
Yes, and this is also a great thing. I mean, it still happen. If a client goes to your grading room and you have a big Flanders or a Sony, he will still think that this monitor is better than a brand new CGI monitor. Even that the brand new probably is better, but the brand sometimes helps. That's also good. But I mean, talking different things about the brand, what I usually like to show to my clients is the calibration report. That's something that differentiates my grading room from the other one. So I send to my clients, hey, this is the calibration report that this monitor is calibrated. And probably you are wondering, hey, why to have a calibrated monitor if I'm grading for internet? Yes, that's a great question. I always think you can have 10 different kind of monitors, all right? Your calibrated monitor is going to be accurate in 7 of that monitors. And that is great. 10 is impossible. You can have 6 of them, but 10 is impossible. But if you don't calibrate your monitor, the only monitor that you're going to see your image as you graded is the only one you graded. No one else, no other monitor is going to reproduce the colors as that one. So that's actually the reason of calibration, is to cover an average of monitors and the best to give yourself confidence and your client confidence about what you are doing.
Yeah, I think it's really
used to
nice if
be
you
that,
work with it. Sorry, Simon, go on.
Sorry, Max.
Don't worry, man.
We'll get this organized at one point. I was just going to add in a quick thing. It used to be simple things like if you were on an 8-bit monitor, you're going to miss things like the banding that you'll see on the 10-bit. But I just wanted to ask you, what are the typical things that you could miss if you were, let's say, for example, that you bought an iMac, say, with a P3 monitor on it, and you think, well, actually, that's pretty good for color. What sort of things are you going to miss if you don't have a calibrated reference monitor?
Right, you say banding, noise. Noise also is something you miss, many things. And we were talking about how is the relation between the colorist and the audio engineer when he's mixing. For example, you always are going to see an audio engineer with great monitor speakers. Let's call Genelect. I don't know so many about audio, but they're going to have great audio like speakers. And you're not going to see never them with some consumers monitor mixing. Let's call BOSI. Maximus knows what is BOSI, like the acronym. So I always think it's in that relation. You're not going to see an audio mixer mixing in BOSI. He always have his speakers like professional. So I'm always make the relation with colorists and Mac monitors. In some way, iMac. Here I'm in a MacBook Pro. So, I mean, they are great, but they hide many things. And you as a colorist don't want filters. You don't want to hide noise. You don't want to hide banding. You don't want to hide aliasing. You want to see the colors are they are going to be without any filters. So that's the reason that you actually need a monitor that doesn't make up your image.
I see. And what about televisions, using televisions as your reference monitor? Is there any practice out there that, put people using some special OLED TV for grading? Is that recommended?
Yeah, actually, and I'm sure, Tony, in Hollywood, you are going to many grading rooms and they have the LG OLED TVs as a grading monitor reference. I'm sure about it. So yeah, probably everyone, if you're right now a colorist and they say, hey, what monitor or what TV do you recommend for color? LG is definitely the first name you're going to hear. And they are really, really great. They are not as expensive as a broadcast monitor, and you have 55 inches or 65 inches of a TV that can work as a monitor for yourself or as a monitor for your client. And because it's big, everyone loves it.
Wow.
But also you need to calibrate. I mean, you need to calibrate. I know that, for example, in LA, there is a special person that filters the TVs. I mean, you don't get that TVs in Costco or in a supermarket. You go to that guy and what this guy is doing is that he selects the best TVs from many TVs, and he sells that ones to the colorist. Because one of the problems of the TVs, LG OLED TVs, is color uniform. So what he makes is he makes some tests, and he say, okay, this one is the one that has less uniform, like color uniform, and will be with less problems than the other ones that you're going to buy in a supermarket or in Amazon or something like that,
Or in Best Buy.
or in Best Buy.
I
But
see.
also you need to calibrate it. Oh, you need to calibrate it. That's the rule. That's the rule.
All right. Yeah, that's all I want to know from you about monitors. So yeah, still hot on the topic, I guess. That we just have a Resolve 17 just released, right?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about some of the features, probably, Diego?
Yes, definitely. First, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I don't know if the people on the chat are really happy about the 17. For me, this has been the biggest release since many time about color, and I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So let me present. So can you change me to present my screen?
Yeah.
All right, show my screen. There you go. Okay, so now you see Resolve, and as you notice, I'm in the public beta. It's working really good for beta, but I noticed that it has been some problems, especially for people with different like video cards. So there are some problems, but I mean, it's working good. So the first thing that I want to show you is that we have a new color management system, and it's called DaVinci YRGB Color Manage. All right. Usually we always rate in DaVinci YRGB, but 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we are starting to start working with these color management settings, and we have changed and we have used Resolve Color Management 1, let's call it, and ACES. All right. We're going to talk soon about ACES, but here we have a new one that is YRGB Color Manage. And why I like it? Because the last one was I think, a bit too complicated, and this one is so easy. So how you need to work in this Resolve Color Management? First thing you have to notice is that if you are working like this, DaVinci YRGB, you are working in a workflow that is called display refer workflow. So what this means? That you have in your real life high dynamic range white gamut, you capture a lot of that information, but then you grade based on your display. That your display is 6 stops of dynamic range and a small gamut of Rec 709. When you are working in a scene refer color workflow, you are moving to this kind of, let's think, color management systems or frameworks, ACES and Resolve Color Management. What is the key thing to work in scene refer color workflow? Scene refer color workflow is when you are grading with all of the information that you capture, not the information from your display. And with all of the information that you capture, then you map to your display. And that's really awesome because you are working with all of the information from your camera. So the main thing that I like from this version is that we have a new color management, and is DaVinci YRGB color management. And I always think color management needs to be easy. And if you find here, you find many options, but the one I recommend and the one I think everyone is going to use is this one, DaVinci White Gamut. All right. So what is the logic of this DaVinci White Gamut? So it means that you work in your camera or in your animation or your 3D with a lot of high dynamic range and white gamut, and you need to work in a working color space as big as your camera and as your animations. And then the magic is going to make it by mapping. So the working color space needs to be as bigger as your camera. And this is the DaVinci White Gamut. DaVinci Wide Gamut is a color space that is as big as the cameras, even bigger, and as bigger than the display gamuts. So that's the reason that if you don't want to complicate so much yourself, like going, I don't know, in custom or something like that, you just need to DaVinci Wide RGB Color Manage, DaVinci Wide Gamut, and here you select the monitor, and you are all set. This is the first thing that I like it. It's awesome. And why is awesome? Because let me just show you here something really fast. If I don't do anything, I have these clips of, for example, of Pony that are really nice. If I don't do anything, look how they look. So flat, and they look with so unsaturated. If I make this and I select a wide gamut a color space for working as a timeline color space, and then I hit save, look, I have a really great starting point. I have a really great starting point. So one of the best things that I like to work with this is that I don't have any more the lock and flat image. And this is really, really awesome. And the great thing about color management is that you can easily change to another color management or to another gamut display. And the mapping, it will be, let's think, 80% or 70%. So the first thing that I say is DaVinci Wide Gamut is awesome. And if you guys want to try it, you just need to change this to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and that's it. Start working. And you have a really great starting point. That's the first one. The second one that I think is really, really awesome is the new HDR palette. So the new HDR palette is created to affect 16 stops of your image. And you have different like wheels that are going to affect these 16 steps. If you want to use it in the best way, this high dynamic range is a good practice is to select this option. And here, for example, in this image, you are going to notice that there is a histogram and there is each one of the sensors that you are going to affect. So here you can notice, and even you can move them. And you have, for example, in this case, I have the light, and the light is going to affect this. And you're going to select. But the best practice, what I think, is always have this one next to this one. And one great thing that I love it is, for example, in this shot, I found that, hey, I want to affect the highlight, the light. But I want to see like an alpha. So this is a great option. You select here, and you just really fast check what is going to affect one of these shadows, one of these like wheels. It's like making a qualifier without making it a qualifier. So this is really awesome. For example, this is skins, light. I can move briefly the light. And as you notice here, I'm affecting just the light. And I have every saturation. So the HDR tonal range is awesome. It's 16 stops. This 0 is the mid gray. And here you see the 8 stops like back and 8 stops more. This is great. The other one and the third one that I love more, because I'm almost taking you guys the time. The third one that I like really a lot. Okay, maybe a third one, third A. The third A is that now I have, finally, I have the curves in a floating window. And this is great because for the people that love to use the curves, they can use it separately in a separate monitor, and they can make as bigger the cup as they want it. Wow, that's really, really awesome. Nice. And it's a really fast one. And the main one that everyone is talking is about the color warper. So the color warper is, let's imagine that is like a vector scope, but a vector scope that you can play. It's like that. So the color warper is going to be hue versus sat and hue versus hue. Imagine that is these two curves just in one tool. And it's like dragging your vector scope. So for example, I want less saturated here. I move it and it's less saturated. I want a little bit of hue, and now I have a hue. You see, and it's really, really fast to move it. And the other one that you have here is this one. It's like another part of the color warper. And imagine this is a cube. This is a rubric cube that you move it, all right? And here, you can move it, and you can see. You see, this is like a cube, and you move it, and this is especially good for a light. Light is like light versus sat or something like that. But this is a great tool. For example, I noticed that when you are talking about the skins, and in the first session, we'll talk about the line of skins, and you can make here and drag it, and you can really easy find like the accurate skin, just dragging and desaturate, and you see the vector scope. It's like moving the vector scope, and that is what I found really, really awesome. And one last tip, if you want to see the alpha, you just press Alt or Option in the point you are doing, and you see the alpha or what is affecting this tool. And I love this. I'm the kind of person that loves qualifier, but with the color warper and the HDR tools, it's like I don't need the qualifier in most of the cases now. So it's like that, guys.
Wow.
I was so happy actually presenting them.
Wow. Crazy. Crazy
crazy.
good.
Yes.
So we have Tony next, right? Tony, you want to discuss about LUTs. And how is it, Tony? Could you just
Sure.
share your knowledge to us about how to tastefully use LUTs?
I have no idea how to follow all that. That was awesome, Diego. this right here is gonna be a little bit more amateur than that. That was pretty phenomenal. I didn't want to tip a hat to just like color environment really quick. You know, we talked about monitors, but also like there's so many cheap tricks that you can do, like going to IKEA and go into the like lighting section, getting you something that costs like $10, $15. Nice little LED situation. You can put a little blast of light on the wall behind your monitor when you're sitting in the dark. Give yourself a little ambiance. You know, there's a color sync box from Philips that basically will sync with your monitor, do an output of LED colors to do like a bleed on the wall of the existing color that you have on your screen. There's so many different ways that you can display color in your own room. So, you know, if you want to be immersive, you can actually do a color bleed with lights externally. Then it was a TV that they used to have called the Ambilight TV, and it came out more than a handful of years ago. It was an LED consumer set, but it was pretty interesting concept, and a lot of other companies have piggybacked on that. So just want to, and I think I provided the links, either Simon or Max, if you don't mind pasting them in the chat for people to see. But let's talk about stuff that's not so beautiful. And I actually have a file to share. I don't know if Simon, did you share the bit.ly link with them for the Dropbox?
Yeah, it's in the chat and also in the questions area.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the unpleasantry, like when you have to do, and I'll tell you right now, just kind of referencing some major promos, some major, you know, whether it's sporting events or a major promo for something that's happened or a big event that's happening, or even a, you know, it could be a film, could be anything. But a lot of the time we tend to have to rip down YouTube clips or previously used, highly compressed, really, you know, 720p clips that are MP4s, right? So it's not as nice as using that raw cinematic clip, but this is just an actual fact. A lot of the times, you know, you'll have to recycle footage, and when you recycle footage, 9 times out of 10, it's something that's pretty unpleasant, already crushed, doesn't look so great, and you have to go in there and basically reverse grade. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that basically, I'm just going to show you a few of these, and this timeline is included. I made the Resolve 16 version, I made an XML, and I also made the Resolve 17 version, and shared a new .drt file, which is basically the timeline only. It's pretty awesome stuff. New feature in Resolve 17. So in here, first and foremost, let me just talk about noise, right? So here's noise, and this is the beautiful noise, right, that you want to add. Like these are stock clips. I have these available as well, and we'll provide a link to where you can download them if they're not in the existing zip. But here's like 16 millimeter coarse noise. Here's 16 millimeter film scratches. All right, here's 35 millimeter coarse noise, and you kind of see the dancing pixels. And if I zoomed in here and played it back, you would see kind of how noisy that looks. I'm sure over this, over our session too, it's being affected by compression as well. But if I zoom in here, here's kind of the beautiful noise that people add to their clips. That's just kind of a stock noise that you can download. And again, it's just kind of, these are assets that that people typically use to cover up and add a little bit of richness to whatever clip you already have. I'll show you an example of it, but I just want to show you when we say noise is not always a bad thing. You have all this different types of noise, and sometimes you add this purposely. So with that said, let me just kind of jump through here and just show you, and let me zoom out. And this is the kind of macro blocking, not so beautiful noise here, right? And these are things that you don't necessarily want to have, but you might have to use a shot, and that shot is kind of noisy, and you have no other choice because it's the one time when that was, it's a quick turnaround situation. Somebody gives you a YouTube link. If I could count the amount of times when people will send you a YouTube link and say, yeah, here's all the videos, just edit these. And, it's YouTube links. So then, I'll leave it to you to find out how you can get those down from YouTube. But there's many different ways. And I have had so many times where I've had to mesh this YouTube compressed stuff. That's even 720, not even full 1080. That's an MP4. That's, again, just kind of smashed up, has a lot of macro blocking, and just kind of looks like mush on the screen. DaVinci Resolve does a really great job of scaling things up. You can actually go in, and let me just show you this real quick. You can go into some of these clips here, and if you go to the, where are these options? Sorry, I'm losing my voice ever so slightly from talking. So in here, there is an option here, just on the asset level. If you right click and go choose in the contextual menu, clip attributes, there's an option here for super scale, and you can do this on a global setting, but you can also do this. I'm going to tell you right now, trying to play this back, if you do a super scale 4 times on something that's 720, that requires math, and it requires your processor and your GPU to do a little bit of work. So if you don't get exact playback and it's not as snappy, it's because you're literally doing math. At that point, you might want to just export, or now you can render in place inside of DaVinci Resolve, which is pretty awesome, which is very similar to what After Effects and Adobe Premiere do. So super scale will allow you the option to kind of grow those pixels. Again, it still won't be as pretty as these cinematic shots that you may already have in your timeline. But if this were a sports situation or a flashback or something like that, and this is the best possible clip that you have, or it's coming from the free archives, or let's call the YouTube archives, you can actually bring it in here. And like right now, I'm working on a 4K timeline with a 720p clip, but I can also adjust sharpness and the real balance, right? The scales are basically going in between sharpness and noise reduction. So when you want to do noise reduction kind of blurs and smudges your image a bit. And then the sharpness may kick up the dust a little bit and give you some aliasing. So, doing a good balance of, do you want to see it more detailed and sharp, or do you want to see it with less noise? It's kind of, for the darker shots, I would definitely go with more noise reduction and less sharpness. For the lighter, brighter images, I would go with more sharpness and less noise reduction. So again, it's just kind of look at it as a seesaw. it's the scale that you want to tip on. And then, so that's just one thing. But right now, I'm not even doing that. And I'm in this UHD situation, and it's not too bad. The project that you have, access to will be, and let me show my messy desktop for just a second. You'll have this zip right here, and inside of this zip, all right, you will see files like this. All right, so if you're on Resolve 16, you can literally drag out this Vinci Resolve .drp file. And let me just switch back to Resolve. And when you hit the Shift and the number 1, this pulls up your project manager, right? Or if you hit the little house in the bottom right-hand corner, and then inside of here, you can drag that file right in, that DRP file, drag it right in, and that's one way to just import the project into your database. So if you're in DaVinci Resolve 17, you can also import what's called a DRT file. So inside the R16 files, as in Resolve 16, if you haven't jumped in the pool yet, totally fine. I completely understand. I've made these available for you. So you also have an XML. So if you go to back to Resolve, you can go to File and then Import Timeline, right? And then it'll be from XML, right? So not media, but import timeline from XML. I'm inside of Resolve 17 right now, so your situation will look a little bit different in the menus. But when you go inside of Resolve 16, you'll see import timeline from XML. And then you will end up with a timeline that looks similar to this. If you're in, and let me just show you this again, R17 files, you will see the .drt, I'm saying it backwards, .drt file, which is just your timeline, or I made a classic .drp, which is the DaVinci Resolve project. And again, just drag it into your project manager and it should sync up. The only thing you would need to do, and of course, if you place this on your desktop, just navigate to your desktop. Inside of here, you would relink to this media here. So when you do the relinking, you would do it, I would go to the master folder here inside of your media pool. You can do it on the media page, or you can do it on the edit page. And then you can just go to master folder, right click, and then inside of here, you would do relink clips for selected bin. You do it on the master level. Now it goes to relink all clips inside of this project. So that right there is just a basic lesson on how you connect these files. And you're going to get this wonderful 720p that's on a 1080 timeline. So it's sized up a little bit. And then from here, the other thing I would suggest is I have included this generic 709 to log LUT along with it as a .cube file. Now let me show you, right? There is a folder that you should be aware of. And you want to take this right here and you want to copy it into your program, your system files for DaVinci Resolve. This is where all the LUT files get loaded up inside of DaVinci Resolve. So on a Mac, all right, and Max actually has the, I don't know if you want to type it in the chat where you would look on a PC, but yeah. I mean on a Windows machine, right? They're all technically PCs, personal computers, right? So inside of here, here's the LUT file. I like to make, kind of quick location favorites. So inside of here, this is the path that you would follow. So it would be your hard drive, your library file, which is hidden, and I'll show you where to get to it. The application support, Blackmagic Design, DaVinci Resolve, and then LUT. And inside of here, I made a folder at the top with a few underscores, so it lives at the top, just called Reverse LUTs. Nice. So what you would do for this, right? This, putting all those LUTs in there is what basically, that is what you will see inside of DaVinci Resolve. So this is mirrored inside of Resolve based on that folder structure inside of there. So if I were to go, you drop it into here, and I have two types of files. There's the .vlt and then there's the .cube. I tend to just go with the .cube. I feel like it's a more popular method, but you can use the .VLT if you want. There's many different flavors. And then as you can see, there's the .ILUT as well. So same idea, right? And you know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, Diego, the actual legitimate colorists. So inside of here now, I have all these files. So what I was trying to say is, for you, when I give you, since I've given you these files, grab this and you want to drop it inside of this structure, and you can literally just drop it, just drop that folder that I sent you. Just drop this folder inside of the LUTs folder and close out DaVinci Resolve, reopen it, and that's when it's going to load up inside of your LUTs. So let's just jump back in here to the session, and I'm going to go ahead and show you. So these are all already been colored. They already have, and this one I've actually, let me just disable this, my beautiful noise here, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But all these clips are already kind of have looks on them, and they're already kind of mashed a little bit, and the black points are already set. And you know, actually with this one, let me just recall this one. This is what it looked like originally, and I'll just kind of through and show you. Some of these are really crushed and already kind of have looks to them, you know, and have vignettes. So we'll talk about kind of noise. I'll try to jump into reverse vignetting, depending on the amount of time we have. And we'll talk just quickly about how do you get these things to be reversed when they are very saturated, very stylized, right? And some of these things are already set up. So you want to undo things. You don't want them to be as green. You don't want to be as stylized, but you want to use that shot. And the only thing you have access to is that lovely 720p file that you ripped down, right? So let's just go over here, and I'm going to jump into the color page. And on the color page, I actually love to pull up the clips, right? So if your color page is like this, I'm not a fan really of having the timeline up. It's interesting. It's a good reference point, but for screen real estate, I'm going to turn off the timeline, leave the nodes on, and then just put up the clips, okay? So with the clips, you can kind of jump around. This is a great way to kind of preview your whole timeline as well. So even if you're not doing color, I really am a fan of this page because it's the quickest way, you know, besides making in and out points and then looping your playback. This is the quickest way to kind of just loop a shot. So hit the loop button here and then just play. And then this is actually just going to literally loop only that shot. So if you ever wanted to kind of showcase or show off one edit, you can go just to that clip, right? And you can just loop that one clip. So especially if you're proud of something that you did, right? So let's just look at this clip, right, in particular. And I'm going to show you the very first thing you can actually do. And there's other ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you a really simple way of doing it. Navigate to that LUT. I have 8 versions here. They're literally just, you know, some of the VLT and some of the cube. And you actually just have 4 versions. And let me just show you how that's affected here on this in the scopes. So with the 4 versions, if you take a look at my scopes here, you can see each one of these, right? And then when I go side by side, it's actually half of them are the VLT and half of them are the cube. So let me just, I will uncheck these and I'll make them favorites just so we can ignore that and go straight to favorites. These are all just the .cube file. So in the favorites, just to show you the different flavors that you've been given, right? And this is 4 flavors of that generic 709, right? So to take you from where the black point is when it's on YouTube, when it's already been compressed, to just kind of loosen things up and raise the ceiling up just a hair, okay? Just keep in mind that like you only have but so much that you can work with these before they get crunched again and start looking bad. So, you know, this right here gets me to a good point. This one's a lot less contrasty, and some of these affect different parts of the image, okay? So the good thing is when you do, you can actually preview over this, and you'll see there's an option here. See what it says hover scrub preview. So this right here, and then also live preview, but hover scrub preview will allow you, right? If you do thumbnail and viewer, it'll show you what that grade looks like on your live footage here. So if I wanted to go kind of super flat and give myself a little bit more of a ceiling, I can go with this one. But if I wanted to go something a little bit more familiar, right? Like this is what it comes out of the camera looking like, or maybe even this one where it has the black point is set, but it's just a little bit less work to do. Or this one right here is still already, you have this much room. So that's the flattest. This one right here, again, they're affecting different parts of the image. But you know, for this, let me go with this one. For me, this is my favorite. And I'm just gonna put it on the very first node. Typically, I would do an Option S and kind of separate it. But because I want to reverse grade, I'm just gonna do this by double clicking on it. And now you'll see I put that LUT right here on the very first color node. And you can disable it. This is kind of a global setting, or you can right click and choose a bypass if you want, but you can always reverse this or right click and choose reset node grade. So for this one right here,
can I just a quick question in here? What sort of things do you need to look out for when you're doing a reverse grade like this? Because you've got your footage, which is 8 bits, of course, and then you are effectively making it a stylized flat, well, at least visually version of it. But presumably you're going to be introducing a lot more problems into it. So is there any tips if you're having to do this? Any things to look out for?
So yeah, so noise would probably be the very first thing, but also highlights. So there's a highlight in this image right here, and it really depends on how much of that highlight do you want to preserve. So when you're picking out of those 4, and you know, there's many flavors of this, but with this one in particular, some will preserve the highlight, some will preserve the gamma. So kind of depending on how much, let's just say you have a certain amount of paint that you put on that paper, right? And like, it can only go but so far. So, you know, depending on where you want that paint to live, if this makes sense, kind of you have this much color information and you smash it down, but how far do you want it to stretch? So I would say preserving highlights and then preserving the gamma are probably the things to look at. Also, you know, kicking up noise. And you know, with that, let me show you with this one in particular. I'll just do a quick, I'm going to use the curves. You could also do your lift gamma gain, but let me just, for this now, I'm going to add another node, and I'm just going to do a quick kind of drop things and just do a little slight S, right? And just kind of bring things up a little bit. And then I can also kind of cool this whole shot off, and I'll just do that on another node, and I'll just use this offset here and kind of bring this and make it look a little bit more of the blue. Right, and now you might actually notice you'll kick up some dust, right? So I'm going to kick up some dust here, and you can actually see, I'm not sure how well you'll see it, but now you can see kind of the macro blocking, and this introduces all this fun noise, right? Unfun, I'm making my own words. But this will make some of this noise that's just not desirable, and this is the stuff that you'd want to cover up. So let me go back to the edit page. And I'm going to bring in, and I have this one clip that's above it that I already have set. Let me just zoom in here. And this is just our 35 millimeter noise. Let me make it about the same as the other one. And right now I have it disabled, but you can put it in, and let me just enable it by hitting the D, as in disable or enable, and you can just hit the D key, which will enable and disable. And then you'll see this actually, you know, one step I would say when you do add any of this desirable noise is you want to clean up first before you do that. And you can clean this up. There's an effect that you can do. There's a few things that you can actually do, but with this, you can do it as a node. I mean, you can do it inside of the color page. And where is it in here? Now in 17, I get a little bit lost. Will we say, is it under sizing? Where is it? All right, colorist. This is where I tag one of the colorists in. So let's say
sizing is it?
It's actually under sizing?
Yes, but it's the right one.
I think it's over here.
No, that's the magic mask.
Ah, so here, and then switch to the far. Where is it?
Oh no, sorry. Where was you looking?
I was looking for a noise reduction.
No, it's actually in the first
It's over
palette,
here.
the left one, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So on the studio version, you have access to this, but there are many ways that you can do this. You can actually do it as an effect, and I want to say that that's pretty new inside of 17, doing it as an effect, right? Was it
Yeah.
16 or 17, Diego, that you can do the noise cleanup as an effect?
In the timeline in 17.
In 17, okay. So
Yes.
if I go here, I think
In
it's
the
on the
edit
toolbox,
page.
right? If you go to toolbox and you scroll down, or we can even type it in.
It's in the OpenFX, yeah.
Yep.
No, it's actually because you have to open. There you go. Noise reduction.
So yeah, noise reduction. So you can add this, and I'm adding the noise reduction, right, to the actual shot, not to the 35mm noise. I would actually, preferably you would lock it so you don't affect it whatsoever. That's just kind of the safety. But if we went into here and then we went to our effects, let me just drag that in and drop it right there. Go to our effects in our all new panel here, by the way, and that's another whole topic. But then you can kind of choose, do you want it better, faster, bigger range, smaller range? How targeted do you want it? And then you can kind of jump in here. And I'm just going to do something really quick. I know it's not the best possible situation. I'm just going to drag sliders. And, with this, you want to clean up this noise. Also, I still have this other one on. I'll disable this. So what it effectively will do is it starts cleaning up things, but it also just starts basically making things very blurry. Okay, so you want to do a balance between your sharpness, right? And again, like I said, for darker images, you don't want to really bring out the sharpness. That brings out more noise. So for the lighter images, you can bring out more sharpness. And again, this is just my opinion, but I've seen that you bring out a little bit more sharpness, and then as long as you're not kicking up too much dust here, right, that's when you can kind of cover that up with your 35mm noise that you put over top. Or if you use Magic Bullet Looks, you can do noise effectively inside of Magic Bullet Looks. You can clean. I'll do one quick thing, just so I don't know how far we are in time, but I'll do, I guess, another 2 minutes of this and hand it over. So inside of here, I'll disable this effect, and I'll just go to Looks, throw this on here, and then I'll launch Magic Bullet Looks as an effect down below it. And I think I should be able to, double click and close that up. Go to Looks, open up the edit. When you click Edit Looks, it's going to launch. And then this right here takes a second, and now we have our Looks interface. Inside of here, you have these tools, and you can go here, and that would be, there's a few. There's Renoiser, right? And then to clean things up, I want to say, let's see, the Renoiser, let's see here.
Renoise is the one for giving you the that lovely film grain. So if you haven't got a film grain clip, you can use Renoiser in exactly this way. Absolutely.
It's the organic way of making your own noise.
Yes.
I think a lot of them aren't they built on they're built on all the on the science and tech of actually going and using 35mm, and they kind of follow all the same rules, and they're all shot based on that.
That's right. Yeah. And Renoiser works as a standalone as well, and it breaks apart the image and then projects that image back onto those textures and those small pieces of grain, and you can change the size of the grain according to the type of film grain that you want to match.
So image vitamins
so
is always
there's a whole, you're absolutely right, there's a whole process behind it. It's not just a piece of it's just a piece of grain. It's actually breaking apart the image.
You see this right here, this is pretty, this one right here is a great one, the compression proofing, because if you look at my image disappearing, let me rehash that one. Sometimes you just need to relaunch Looks, but whenever you're zooming in and out, sometimes you get this issue. But let me just show you here, when I added the compression proofing, and this is kind of the last bit just because we're kind of nearing the end here, but renoiser, double click on it, and then go to compression proofing. And what you'll see is it actually, you'll see a little bit more of stepping versus actual dancing pixels, and that's doing a lot of the cleanup for you as well. And again, this is if you don't have the studio version, or if you do have the studio version, this is one way to kind of do the image cleanup. So I would do the cleanup, and then later, right, you add back in, right? You can add back in the grit and the grime that you need, but right now this is double right now. So let me turn that one off. But the idea is that you want to cover up all this dancing pixels, and you want to add in the appropriate noise to clean up all that mashing of pixels that you did to soften. So, but that's all I have for that. Let me turn this back over because I feel like we're running kind of low on time here.
That's a nice trick to be able to use those two processes together and manage that. I think we've got enough time for you to sneak in that trick, Diego, don't we? That you were going to
perfect.
show. Excellent.
Yeah,
about
so really,
matching.
It's really fast. For example, I will say, okay, I didn't know about the LUTs, Tony. Definitely, I will use it, but sometimes I make it manually. So how you can make or restore this manually? So the first thing is that you need to, I'm here. So you need to compress the color. So look, I'm compressing the color. And then what I'm doing is in the RGB parade, I'm balancing. And after having a flat image, similar as the result of the LUT, what I'm doing then is I'm expanding my dynamic range. And having that, what I did is I control all of these like color cast that was in the shot, and now I really easy have in some way a flat shot without so many things, and I can balance it and I can use it again. And the technique was that the first node really compress. You compress the image, you balance the image, and in the second node you expand. And you take advantage of this color signal in Vinci Resolve. And that is one of the key things when you are grading. Look at the signal. The nodes, the order of the nodes really are really important. So this is something that I usually do. But also you can make something like go with the corpse if you want it. And you can balance it, your image. But I usually prefer the other method. Here, Luma Mix 0. I usually prefer the other method, like to compress, balancing compress, and then expand. All right, that's such a tip. And also what I like to say is that when using LUTs, you remember that we were talking about the scene and display referred. Most of the LUTs were created for display referred. So that is in some way a problem when we're using right now LUTs. But in this case, I just have a tip. When you are using LUTs, it's like, for example, I will just have this generator. And let's think that I have here. I'm actually right now have this behavior because of my color management, because of the tone mapping. Oh, no, actually it's okay. So when you're using LUTs, if you use LUTs in the first node, I will move here. And look, I'm going to use this one from ARRI. Wait. From ARRI to Rec 709. So when you're looking at in my waveform, let me just, it's like he's making like a S curve. And he's clipping some parts of my 10 steps, some blacks and some whites. And then if you're making some color process after that node, what you're going to notice is that you're not going to never rescue the stops you had in your image. Never. All right, look at the scope. Here is really flat. So the recommendation is that if you are using LUTs, try to use them always in a second level, And here, when you have, for example, if this lot is clipping you some highlights or scratching you some blacks, you always have a node to control them. And here you are rescuing the highlights or rescuing the blacks. And that's just 2 tips. It's like you can always replicate what the lot is doing. If you are using a lot, be aware that you are working in most of the cases in display refer color space, in some way display refer color. And the other one is try to use the nodes as a second process, because the nodes, the lots as a second process, because the lots in some way, they don't make your image with a higher dynamic range, they compress. So if you have a lot in the second node, you have one node as adjustment to, in some way, to prepare your shot for a lot. That's it.
So like just use them as a reference sparingly. LUTs are not how you build. I showed what I showed, but I think, you know, just to kind of echo what he says, and I think also maybe do you have like a template node structure that already has like the starting points without you pushing the sliders? Like maybe, you know, you add the effects to it, and then depending on each shot, now you already know what the recipe is, so then you dial them in. Do you have anything like that that you typically have?
For example, in this case, look, this with your footage, that is really awesome. What I make is a really fast node structure. And if I want to be fast in some way, or actually, I mean, all the time, it doesn't matter if I want to be fast or no, I make a node structure thinking on what the shot is going to be. And what I do is that I copy that node structure to all the clips, and then I work in every node depending on what I'm going to do. And for example, in this case, especially, I have this drone shot I'm going to show you before. Actually, where was it? Here. Yeah. Something like that. It's a flat. And then I have this clip from the B-roll. And as you notice, they are so different. They are so different. For sure, I'm helping myself with the, always, right now I'm doing, with the color management. So I'm making color space transform to have a better starting point. And what I'm doing here is with a node structure, all the same, I'm trying to match them. But for example, in this case, what I noticed before grading is that there was a lack of saturation in this shot. So the bigger problem was the saturation here. So when I match them, look, wait, my first node in this part was a lot of saturation. And there you go. And this still needs to be matched a bit more. But we can, I mean, we can come here and we can still play. And for example, for all of you guys, right now I'm playing a lot in the look node with the HDR panel. I'm starting to love it. I'm starting to love it, the HDR panel. And it's great for cover that ranges that you need to cover really fast. And you usually cover it with qualifiers and so on. So the HDR panel is, I'm starting to like it a lot here in the look, but you can use it wherever you need it. It's like that.
Could you break down
Excellent.
a little bit, Diego? Why do you have 3 different layers in the look?
All right, let's make it really fast. All right, so the first one is expo. It's usually, you can call it raw or you can call it base grade. So for example, usually when you are in, let me show you something really nice that I like from the 17, is you can bypass color management. So when you are in log, you have this starting point. One of the reasons of working with ACEs or with Resolve color management is that you have a better starting point. I love this. Then in the first one, what I did was a bit of balancing and exposure. I usually did with, or sometimes do with leaf gamma gain, sometimes with control, sometimes with offset. But in this case, I was thinking, hey, I'm starting to experiment with the HDR. So I also move it. Then in the second node, what I did, wait. Sorry. Then in the second node, what I did was a pop. Pop is to take out the image. So I usually make the pop with the contrast. But in this case, let me see what I use. Okay, in this case, I use the HDR tonal range to pop it. And then in the look, I just move the tonal range, like the light to the yellow, and I put a little bit of here, a little bit in the shadows, a little bit of cyan, move it, something like that. And for example, I have these 2 nodes, and even I can have more for windows. I can make different windows. For example, in this case, I can make a window or something like that, just to, let's see.
A foreground, background kind of situation?
Yeah, something like that, and just something like this, like just to focus more in the person. I make a window, and you can make as many windows as you think you need to relight or to improve the lighting of the shot. Then I make a vignette. Vignette is a vignette is really awesome, because one of the problems that we have as in the eye is that we perceive more light than color, but our roads see more light in the edges of the image. So what the vignette is doing is that it's focusing more like the eye to what we need to see. In this case, we need to see there, and really soft vignette, something like that. And what I love is that it's giving a lot of depth. That is really great. It's giving a lot of depth. And then sometimes, or in most of the cases, I use a clean black. And what the clean black is doing is that in color there are no rules, but one rule that is close is that we like to have the blacks balanced. So this means that these are really balanced. Why? Because this is going to give you a color stability in your process. So I usually put it at the end, and I usually have a last node as a trim for any correction. I can use this one, or I can use a parallel with some connections, but I always think that less nodes, here I'm working with 5 nodes, 6 nodes, and the other ones are just in case. I always think that less is more. I'm not the colorist that is using 30 or 20 nodes. I'm just using a couple of nodes, but it's techniques. You can use the technique that you feel that is better for your shot, or the one that you like more. But what I will say, and with this I will finish, is that if I'm grading 700 shots or 300 shots, definitely I will make first a node structure. I will copy it, and the node structure will be with not so many nodes, because I need to be fast. And if I have 20 nodes, I will spend more time moving between nodes than grading.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Absolutely. A couple of quick questions that have just come in, Diego. And Letitia asked a while ago about what would be your opinion? Is it safe now to be grading in DaVinci 17, or should you wait?
I actually it's really interesting. I already made a short film in the 17, and it was working good. But what I noticed is that it's having some issues with some video cards, especially when you're working in PC, in Windows. And for example, I have a student that switched to the 17, and he had to switch back because it was showing some issues. Imagine that this image was showing pinkies, reds, something like a false color. And that's the reason that he has to go back. I'm thinking that if you want to take the risk, why not? By always backup, and always think that you can, you have all the files to go back. In my case, there are there are awesome tools. So in my case, I couldn't resist.
Understood.
And make sure you don't update your operating system at the same time, of course.
Yes. Make all the backups you need. So if you have any problem, you have
Absolutely. Yeah. And a last quick question from Glenn was, is the HDR panel for HDR only, or can you use it for different types of gamut?
No, that's really a great question. Is for any type of material and any type of footage, I mean, any type of workflow, but definitely it's going to work better in high dynamic range footage. For example, in this case, I have some Blackmagic Raw. It's going to work better, and it's going to work better if you are grading in the scene, like in this case. I'm grading in a color space that is going to take advantage of all the wide gamut and high dynamic range from the cameras. If you are grading in DaVinci Wide RGB, you are not taking advantage of, I mean, you are grading based off a display. So for complete your answer, yes, it's going to work in any kind of footage, but always try to work in scene referred color space, DaVinci Wide RGB mode or ACES, and with high dynamic range footage.
Great, excellent. Those are great tips. Thank you everyone for letting us overrun slightly. What we thought is interesting and useful for you to be able to see those things. And I'm going to hand this back to Max so that we can just like close off and give you a reminder about where you can see the recording and that sort of thing. So I've just set you as presenter, Max.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. Don't forget to tune back in to next week. We will continue from what we just discussed today, and for next week we will be talking about creating some looks when we are grading. So we will go deeper more into the creative aspects when we are color grading, and what are the recipes, the best practice when creating looks. And once again, if you missed the sessions, just tune in to our YouTube channel. It is called Maxon Volume Program. All the recordings will be uploaded there. And if you already registered, you will also receive the recording links to in your email. Right. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this week. We will see you next week, right? And
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
It's just one last thing, a quick question from James. It's the Maxon Volume Program Training channel. But
yes,
you'll get a link in the email. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Max. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, guys.
Really appreciate it.
Enjoy your week.
Bye.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.